Welcome to the Gospel Wise Author Podcast, the go-to resource for creative Christians like you seeking actionable advice, inspiration, and insight into the modern publishing world. From one independent writer to another, I'm here to empower you to write, publish, and market your books, wielding the pen for the sake of the cross, all for God's glory and your neighbor's gospel good. Again, welcome. Glad you're here. Let's create for Christ together. Hey, creative Christian, Jeremy here with episode 15 of the Gospel Wise Author Podcast, which I have aptly titled The Power of a Writing Challenge: How Focused Sprints Supercharge Your Writing Life. And this is a topic, writing challenges, sprints, that is super near and dear to my heart because I've participated in several of these kinds of challenges and sprints that have done what the title suggests, supercharged my own writing life and catapulted entire fictional series into existence that would not have come about had I not had the opportunity to dive into a writing challenge. And I know for me, writing challenges, sprints have hammered and honed my own writing life and storytelling craft in a way that I never would have had I not launched into my own writing challenges and joined other people's writing challenges. So today in this episode, I'm sort of pulling back the curtain on how writing challenges have shaped my career and how one just might change yours, particularly this August 2025 as I record this. Last episode I mentioned that coming up next month, this summer 2025 in August, I am launching what I am calling the Faith-Based Writing Month Challenge. And I'm hoping that this becomes a regular occurrence, but I'd like to spearhead it at the end of the summer in August, partly because I selfishly would like to jumpstart my own storytelling this summer as I've finished up one big novel that took me longer than I expected, and I'm a little behind in my own writing, and I thought that this would be a great way to hopefully write a complete novel, a 50,000-word novel in the month of August, really along the same lines of National Novel Writing Month, which had been in November, but apparently, sadly, is now defunct. In April, the whole organization closed down for a number of reasons, and so there will no longer be a National Novel Writing Month come November. And I'm hoping to change that for you, creative Christian, and other faith-based writers by launching this challenge in August that I hope will then continue perhaps in November and into next year as well. Instead of NaNoWriMo, I'm calling it FaBoWriMo, Faith-Based Book Writing Month. And you are invited to participate free of charge. To sign up, go to crossandpen.com/challenge, where you will also be presented with another free opportunity that I'm launching next week, Tuesday, a free live workshop training on how to finish that book, how to plan it, to write it, and then to faithfully finish that book. More details in this episode and in the show notes on both the challenge and the workshop that I hope that you will take advantage of to maybe launch your writing career for the first time, to restart it, to resuscitate it, as these kinds of challenges have for me, or to continue building on and continuing the momentum that you have started either this year or in previous years, all for God's glory and the gospel good of your neighbor. So that's what's in store in this episode. The Power of a Writing Challenge: How Focused Sprints Supercharge Your Writing Life. All right, let's get to it, beginning with a bit of my own history with writing challenges and how they might inspire you to join in. So my first foray into this concept of challenges and sprints was really tied back to that now defunct organization, National Novel Writing Month. This was 13 years ago in 2012. I was pastoring a small church in West Michigan, and I had vision for taking elements of my own spiritual journey and weaving them into a fictional sort of spiritual coming-of-age story that became what would later become part of the Faith Reimagined trilogy. This was book 2 that I wrote for the first time during this challenge, and at the time it was called From There and Back Again. And again, it was based on my own spiritual journey in Washington, D.C., sort of coming out of a conservative fundamentalist background, reimagining my faith, only then to rediscover it later on. And this book was super crucial for launching my own fiction writing career. I had never written a fiction book in my entire life, but that never stopped me before. Trying something new and entering into something that I thought, yeah, I think I would enjoy doing this. I think I could do this. Let's go for it. And so November 2012, I had, again, this vision for this book that would help people not only reimagine their faith, but to rediscover it. And it was based on me moving back home to Grand Rapids to go to seminary to train to be a pastor. And again, weave some of my own story into it through the lens and the character of Peter Daniel Young. Now again, I had never before written fiction, and yet there I was, staring at the blank page, hopping on the keyboard to start this story. About 1,600 words a day to fill up that 50,000 word pot, which is the goal, or was the goal, for National Novel Writing Month, and is also the goal for my own faith-based Book Writing Month challenge here in August 2025. And I gotta tell you, entering into this challenge was good for me in a lot of different ways. First of all, it helped get the story out from my brain into and through my fingers onto the blank page. I don't think I would have ever really started the story, let alone gained the momentum and the discipline with the deadline of the daily writing count, as well as that big prize at the end of having 50,000 words done. Now, that particular story was the start in the book, in the month of November, writing that book. So I started in November, put down 50,000 words, so I succeeded with that goal in terms of the writing side, but the crafting side needed some more work. And so after that month, I had, I think, another year or two before I ended up finishing the story and then getting it out into the world. I think it was actually several months, so it was the next year that I spent more time finishing the story in order to then get it ready to edit and to publish into the world. But again, having that deadline and having that sort of self-contained period with the start of November 1 and going all the way to the end, at the end of November 30, having that sort of time container was super helpful in disciplining me and helping me discover the story along the way, with that deadline each day of the number of words I needed to get down on the page, and then building up to get to the end of that month. And man, it was so good to see those words add up. At the time, there was a portal for National Novel Writing Month, NaNoWriMo, where I could log in my words to see my progress, and to see it all add up was just super encouraging and super thrilling. And that's what I hope to replicate in this challenge next month as well, which I'll give you some more details for later on. But back to my own story. So that was the first NaNoWriMo was 2012. And then I continued on in 2013 with another book idea, a story which became the first book in a 12-book series, which I eventually named the End Times Chronicles series. It's a sort of sci-fi religious fiction series. Dune meets Left Behind, walking the reader through the events of the book of Revelation and all of the tragedy and survival and the faith and the doubt that comes from living through these events, told through a cast of characters who are called to band together as the remnant of Christianity in the face of an overwhelming totalitarian government and world that begins falling apart during the tribulation. And the book I wrote was the first in what would become that series. I began to create 4 episodes in a story season called Apostasy Rising. The second story season was Apocalypse Rising, when the apocalypse hits and the events begin to unfold, and then the final story season was Antichrist Rising. And again, the discipline, the discovery in that moment of the story and the deadline to get the words down each day, adding up to the final pot of 50,000 words at the end, in that self-contained sort of time container, was so good and so helpful in helping me discover the story, but also write the story, which actually was fully written at the end in November. This tactic for me was actually really helpful in creating what I called the story season, where I had 4 self-contained books, each telling a part of the bigger story, which was Apostasy Rising. And I was able to actually write that first part, which was a self-contained novel, 50,000 words, which in this modern day sounds short, but 50 years ago, that was the major length of most major fiction books from the 60s, 70s, the 50s, the pulp era leading into the paperback era, from all of the major author figures that you recognize nowadays. George Orwell and the like. 1984 was around that length, and it was a self-contained book, a whole story, a whole novel that told a story from beginning to end. And that was the vision I had for this particular series, and successfully wrote an entire novel in 2013, which created more momentum, seeing I could write an entire book in that complete month to then join in the next year in 2014. This time, though, was actually a way for me to use the month to complete a book that I had already written. So sometimes these challenges are good to not only start a book, which is what I did, the very first novel I ever wrote, which became part of my Faith Reimagined series, A Rediscovered Faith. That book I started in the month and then continued it later on to finish the complete novel, all 100,000 words. But that first instance in November was crucial to starting the story. Then sometimes I've used the month to actually write the entire book, which I did for that first book in Apostasy Rising, the first part in the story season. But then in this third experience of the challenge of National Novel Writing Month, I finished a story that I had already started and recognized that, again, that self-contained time sort of capsule would be perfect for getting that novel across the finish line. So there you have 3 instances of starting a book, writing an entire book, but then finishing a book. That was super crucial and super helpful in disciplining me, helping me discover the story, but then finishing what I needed with the deadline, with the daily deadline, the weekly deadline, and then that monthly final wrap-up at the end, having that entire month as a deadline to finish the story. So 3 instances, 3 times, I started, wrote, and then finished a book. Challenges for me, that's how it's been. I've, since that initial foray into NaNoWriMo, have come back 2 more times to NaNoWriMo, particularly to, again, start a novel, Holy Shroud, which became the first book in my big religious conspiracy thriller series, Order of Thaddeus. 2015, I started that. Took a little bit longer to finish, but got the major framework down during that month. Then I came back probably, I think it looked like almost 8 years later, to write an entire novel in a spin-off series called Group X Cases. And that was book 3 in that series that I wrote during that month of November, from start to finish, again with the deadline, the discipline that came from hitting the word count each day, each week, leading to that final pot of words at the end of the month, and then that final story that I edited and published the next year. Since NaNoWriMo, I've actually participated in 2 more big challenges that again drove home for me the discipline and discovery and deadline that comes from that self-contained sprint supercharging my writing life with the writing challenge. Actually, 2017 was the next time, and this was a big deal. This was a summer great novel challenge, spearheaded by one of my sort of mentors, if you will, which I've mentioned here before, Dean Wesley Smith. He and I have worked together in different ways. He's a big-time New York author who's written for the Star Trek universe, the Men in Black universe, and some others before going off on his own and starting his own independent writer-author empire, okay? And one of the things that he has tried to do is to help authors, particularly with writing challenges. And the first one I joined was the Great Novel Challenge, summer 2017, in which we were encouraged to write 3 novels in the month of September, in the summer, to then publish shortly thereafter. And that was crucial in helping me finish Holy Shroud, which I mentioned I began in NaNoWriMo. It kind of languished, but I used June to finish that book, start the next book in the series for the month of July, and then write the 3rd book in the series for the month of August, which I literally turned in the day that my daughter was born. Yeah, September 1, 2017, my daughter Caroline was born, and I was in the hospital room after greeting my daughter that day, of course, that morning, but then that evening sent off the manuscript to Dean with a little note mentioning that I literally finished the book the day before my daughter was born, and I'm sending this on the day that my daughter was born. And he was super thrilled and super impressed that I finished the challenge and also had time to spare to see my daughter born. A little joke there, but of course the priority was my daughter, but also, again, what was great about the challenge was that the discipline and the deadline was crucial to helping me finish these 3 books, which were foundational to my own author career and foundational to my fiction career. These books have gone off to impact me in a way that I would not have had I not had the challenge, and thankfully impact other people because of the challenge that I had. And the next challenge was actually very similar and very far more disciplining because of the tight deadline and the momentum that it created in helping me craft my storytelling and also craft my story world for Mill Creek Junction over the span of a year. Now, Mill Creek Junction is a fictional small town in Michigan, very Midwest feel, very small town Midwest feel, and COVID hit 2020 right when I turned 40. And like any 40-year-old, who enters into that the downhill slope of their lifetime, begins asking all sorts of questions about their life, right? And instead of buying a red car for my midlife crisis, I joined one of Dean's other challenges, a short story a week challenge, where I wrote a story a week for 52 weeks, turning them in on Sunday at the end of a long week, crafting a brand new story every week for a year. At the end was a big prize, access to all of their courses on craft and business and marketing. But the big prize for me was what that rhythm did for disciplining me in the art of hitting the deadline, but also molding my storytelling craft. I tell you, the best thing I probably have ever done for my own writing craft is joining in with this story a week challenge, because I had to create a new set of characters in the same town and setting, but with a different set of problems, going through a whole different try-fail cycle to resolve the problem with another resolution at the end. 52 of those, right? And most of them were in this small town. Some of them were for my Order of Thaddeus series. I was actually able to create several short stories for that series, which was super fun and cool. Created another short story collection for my End Times Chronicles series. But most of all, this was the perfect opportunity for me to build new characters, create new characters, discover new characters, and play with new characters in this new story world, Mill Creek Junction. Again, discovery, discipline, deadlines were crucial to my experience, my own history with challenges. So, I don't know about you, but for me, challenges have been so vital, so crucial to the development of my own writing life. These sprints, which have forced me into the chair with my laptop to just start from scratch or to build off of my previous day's work, previous work's work, to build the story, create the story world, and at the end of that self-contained sort of deadline, the time capsule in the month, at the end, either starting a story, then later finishing it, writing something entirely within that month, or at the end, finishing something that I had begun weeks before. That's how I myself have used the power of sprints in that self-contained monthly challenge or yearly challenge in the case of the short story a week challenge to build my own writing life and storytelling life. And I want to invite you into the same kind of experience this month with Faith-Based Book Writing Month in the month of August 2025. crossandpen.com/challenge to get the details, to join the challenge, to get the info that you need to join next month, sign up for the free workshop next Tuesday, 1 p.m., and get the lowdown on how you can finally finish that book you started, finally finish a new book by having the discipline and the deadline of daily writing to bring you and that book across the finish line at the very end and have this story or this resource or devotional. This challenge is not only for storytellers, fiction writers like me. It's meant to be for any Christian writer who has a book in them that the Lord has put on their heart that will glorify God and also bless your reading neighbor with the power of storytelling and the power of the gospel that comes through the resource that Christ himself has put on your heart. In closing, I'd like to look at what these sort of writing challenges have to offer and how I have benefited from these writing challenges. First of all, you've got the focus and the direction, right? Every day you know what you're doing. You know that you've got those 2 hours, which is generally how long I set aside, how much I set aside, recognizing that's how long it takes for me to write my 1,600 or 1,700 words that day to complete the deadline for the novel writing challenge in that space of the month. You know what you got to do. You show up, you sit in your writing chair, and you do the work. Because you started yesterday, you continue that work today, and it's nice because you just keep going, which is that second aspect of the writing challenge. The momentum, the confidence you get from continuing and from keeping on going. You start something and you trust yourself to keep going, and you trust your creative voice because you see the words adding up. You see the story unfolding. You see the devotional coming together or the resource, and you see the way that it's going to impact the world around you. Not only do you get the focus and direction of showing up every day, that the momentum and the confidence from doing the work day in, day out, week in, week out, there's also that built-in accountability aspect, right? With NaNoWriMo, which was great, is that there was a community that was part of that National Novel Writing Challenge. And so you brought buddies along, you connected with people online. What I hope to do in this challenge is have a Facebook group, a pop-up group, where people who join the challenge can come and give each other high fives, accountability. There will be a back-end portal for you to log in your word count so that, again, you have that accountability factor. You see the progress of entering in those words and how they add up at the end to see the final pot of gold of 50,000 words or wherever you land. And it's great. You get the accountability, especially with community from these kinds of challenges. On top of the spiritual discipline, you are disciplining yourself in a professional way, but I also think a spiritual way. The daily writing as devotion to the Lord as well as your neighbor is crucial, as a crucial part of entering into these kinds of challenges that not only force you to finish your story, but also get you into the habit and the discipline of making writing a permanent part, a permanent rhythm of your life. Now, there are challenges, of course. Fatigue, burnout is definitely part of that month-long or year-long sprint, in my case with a short story challenge. And so you got to give yourself grace along the way. Some days you're going to be rocking it. Some days it's going to be harder to get to that chair, to get to the computer, to keep on going. Which is why I am devising some of these more communal accountability aspects of the challenge to keep you going, to give you the extra dose of encouragement you need daily to keep going. So fatigue and burnout certainly is part of it. And so give yourself grace along the way, especially if you fall behind. I definitely did during every single month that I had one of these challenges. Certainly during the year, as I was trying to create a whole new study, or rather a whole new story every week, I got behind. And it's okay if you get behind. The point is entering into the rhythm, giving yourself grace along the way, and doing the work for the sake of God's glory and the gospel good of your neighbor. Remember that these sprints are not about perfection, okay? They're about showing up faithfully with the words that God has given you that have been in you, whether they are a story or a resource or devotional, whatever it is within you that desires to come out through your fingers onto that blank page. It's about getting it out in the sprint with the rhythm that this self-contained challenge offers you. Now, a few tips as we close to crush this writing challenge that I'm inviting you into next August 2025, next month. First of all, set a why, a faith-based why. Why is it you are entering into this challenge? Why is it you want to create this book, the story, or the study? Because this is not just about a word count. It is about the reader on the other side being blessed entertained, delighted, informed, inspired by your words, what you create during this month, okay? Also create time and space to enter into the challenge. For me, that right there, the chair is where I sit with my laptop, a Chromebook I've mentioned before, the benefit of having a laptop or a computer that's dedicated to writing. And I show up every time at the same time, in the morning and the evening, either with a particular vinyl record that primes my brain, that clues me in that it's time to write, or a soundtrack that I put on my head with headphones. Whatever it is, I show up at the same time in the morning or evening, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, in the same spot with my same laptop, which creates a stack of habits working wonders to help me get through the challenge. Think about planning your story or your study lightly in order to start strong. Don't over-outline, just begin. Okay, there's a benefit to pre-writing or pre-planning, which we're going to go over next week in the workshop. But a lot of what happens is beautiful in the discovery of writing. I'm a particularly big fan of discovery writing when the story process unfolds. I enter into the story having an idea of what I want to write, but then I let the story take me where it needs to go. I found benefit from writing devotionals in the same sort of way, having an idea and then letting my creative brain take the devotional where it should go in order to encourage someone in a particular topic out of my own story or out of the example that I use to illustrate the scriptural point. So lightly planning is ideal in order to start strong and to carry on. Speaking of carrying on, tracking your progress is crucial as well. I mentioned the word count that I have built into a portal for the Faith-Based Writing Month Challenge that you will have access to. And tracking that privately or publicly gives you the sort of boost you need to see how you are progressing through your story or your study or resource, getting from point 0 to point 50,000 over that course of the challenge, or whatever the word count is for you next month in August, or whenever you join into a challenge. Tracking that progress is crucial. And then again, grace over guilt, okay? It's not about perfection. It's not even about fulfilling a certain word count at the end. If you miss a day, pick it up the next. If you don't hit the word count you thought you would hit or need to hit in order to quote unquote win the 50,000 word prize, not a big deal, because the point isn't the word count. The point is the impact that you will make through your book. Finishing it and helping you finish it is the point of the challenge, okay? So again, next month, we are doing the Faith-Based Book Writing Month Challenge. The month of August is set aside to hopefully help you end your summer on a high writing note. Get the details at crossandpen.com/challenge to enter into this 31-day challenge to help you write your book, whatever that is, whether a novel or a nonfiction book, this coming August 2025. You will have the opportunity to join in for free, but there are added benefits from going deeper with some of the other plans that I have devised to keep you going throughout the month with some daily devotionals through email, wrap-up videos that I'm going to record for my own writing sessions to hopefully give you a glimpse into how it's going for me with a dose of encouragement to keep you going on your own challenge, as well as some tools and community to give you an experience that will guide you along the way and help you finish the book this August. Again, it's for Christian writers ready to finish strong in 2025, and it's for you, Christian creative, whether you're a novelist or a nonfiction writer, please join me and others in this challenge next month, August 2025. Get the details, crossandpen.com/challenge. And leading into this challenge, next week is another free opportunity, a workshop that I am really excited to give you to help set you up to plan your book and to finish strong, called Faithfully Finished. Your simple plan to fuel writing momentum that works. Next Tuesday, 1 p.m., the idea is to infuse your writing with strategies for hitting your August goals, okay? You're going to get a taste of what this novel writing month, you'll get a taste of what I'm calling FaBoWriMo, faith-based book writing month, what the challenge will be, as well as leaving you with a plan to get you started and to keep you going throughout the month of August. Again, next Tuesday, 1 p.m., with a 48-hour replay for free if you can't make it live, and the opportunity to snag it for lifetime, a bite-sized training to keep you going at the end as well. You can sign up again at crossandpen.com/challenge, where you'll get both the info for the challenge itself, as well as the live workshop to set you up to keep you going through the month of August. All right, I hope this has been helpful for you to give you a glimpse of what a challenge is, why a challenge can be useful to supercharge your writing life with the sort of sprints that come from National Novel Writing Month or faith-based book writing month that I hope spearheads a movement among Christian creatives starting next August. Starting next month, August 2025, please join me, get the details, crossandpen.com/challenge. And remember, again, you don't need perfection. The point isn't a word count. The point is the transformation that you can enter into by doing the hard work, putting in the discipline, putting in the work. Again, the point isn't perfection. The point isn't a word count. The point is faithfulness and the sort of transformation you have the opportunity to offer by doing the hard work as a Christian creative to write your story, to write your resource that will bring glory to God and bless your neighbor by offering transformation through your story and through the devotional or the study or resource that you set out to write along the way in whatever challenge that you join. Hope to see you in this challenge next month in August. Get all the details at crossandpen.com/challenge. Thank you for listening to the Gospel Wise Author Podcast. Truly hope you found it empowering and inspiring, equipping you with the insights you need to wield the pen for the sake of the cross. Take your author journey further with handy tools and faith-fueled training to confidently lean into and live out your spirit-led ministry at gospelwiseauthor.com. Episode show notes and a transcript of this episode can be found at crossandpen.com/podcast. And remember, I'm here for you. If I can come alongside you in your unique vocation, reach out at crossandpen.com/contact. Now go, create for Christ.